Let's continue with another useful reminder how to access internal services. Because in the previous section, we ran an Nginx container and then we exposed it with a load balancer service. But sometimes we want to access a pod or an internal service without exposing it to the whole world. So how can we do that? We have a couple of techniques. We have kubectl proxy, we have kubectl port forward. I'm going to quickly show you both techniques. First, kubectl proxy. So kubectl proxy is a little bit obscure at first. You know, the first time we see that, we're like, what am I supposed to do with that? So let's see. When we do kubectl proxy, it's telling me, okay, I'm serving requests on, localhost 8001. I'm like, okay, what do we have on localhost 8001? And we get this long list of API routes. Like, what is this? This is the Kubernetes API. When we do kubectl proxy, we get a proxy to the Kubernetes API, taking care of authentication, etc. I mean, if we try to connect directly to the Kubernetes API, it would tell us like authentication required, but if we go through that proxy, kubectl is going to take care of injecting our credentials and we can talk with the API that way. Now, how does that give us access to internal services? Well, we have this, this is going to look a little bit like magic, but stay with us. We do /API/v1 /namespaces, and then which namespace? Default, and then services, for instance, and then the name of the service, let's say web/proxy, and that's going to give me the welcome to Nginx. Okay, so what is happening here? So the idea is that this is a standard Kubernetes API route. This is how I would get information for the service that we created in the previous section, that service that's called web. And here we are asking the Kubernetes API to proxy us to that service. So I could put that in my browser as well, and I get welcome to Nginx here. So I'm not asking you to remember how to build these weird URLs, but just know that this is a possibility that exists, and this is particularly useful when you have a bunch of services and you want to kind of access all of them through a single command, because a script could really easily build these URLs if needed. You just run that kubectl proxy and then your script can easily work with that. Now, another option that we have is kubectl port forward. And how does that one work? So we indicate what we want to access. And here I'm going to give an example with a Redis service. Let's say I want to create a deployment that I'm going to call red using the official Redis image. And then I'm going to expose that deployment. And the port number is going to be 6379. Just in case you're wondering, that's the default port for Redis. So now I have an internal Redis service called red, and I want to connect to that. And I can do that with kubectl port forward, service red, and then I put the port number like 6379. And this is going to tell me, yep, I'm forwarding local port 6379 to the remote port 6379. And now I can connect to local 6379. And there we go, I am talking to a Redis server. So I can do set hello world, get hello, and that tells me world, wonderful. Keys star, it's telling me that I have one key called yellow. There we go. So that's a way to access internal services without having to expose them with a load balancer, a node port, or something like that. Good to know if you want to access, for instance, let's say web, which is on port 80. When you do that, it's going to tell you, no, you can't, because I can't bind port 80. As you may or may not know, on Unix traditionally you cannot bind ports below 1024 unless you are root. And so here I have an alternate syntax where I put a local port, colon, a remote port. So that means I want my local port 1234 on my machine to map to port 80 in the cluster. So we do that, and now I can do curl localhost 1234, and I will get the good old welcome to Nginx page. And of course, as soon as I stop my kubectl port forward here, that doesn't work anymore. So, it's like I'm cutting the tunnel that was connecting me to that service. So that's my two methods to access internal services without exposing them to the whole world. And that can be handy in so many scenarios, as you can imagine. Now I would like to install some essential facilities on our Kubernetes cluster. You might be thinking, okay, we got the cluster, now we can just install our applications, but it's a little bit like when you build a house, when you have the walls and the roof, you're like, hey, let's move in, but well, maybe first you would like to have electricity, plumbing, temperature control. So same thing here, there are a few components which I think are essential to make life in the cluster more enjoyable. Specifically, I think we need DNS integration, an Ingress controller, and some very basic metrics. So DNS integration, this is because we have created a load balancer service here, and it has an external IP, but personally I don't want to be typing like 45.79.246.94. No, I would like to have a nice domain name, and I would like that to be as automated as possible. So we're going to do that with something called external DNS. Then I want an Ingress controller. So what's an Ingress controller? An Ingress controller is going to have two points here. One is cost, and the other one is HTTP request routing. Cost, well, imagine that we're deploying like dozens of these HTTP services here. For each of them, we would need one load balancer here. So I would have dozens and dozens of load balancers, and as it happens, these are not free. On Linode, they are, I think, $10 a month, which is actually pretty cheap if you compare that to what other providers are charging, but still, that's not free. And if you have hundreds of web apps, think about not just web apps, but also like microservices. And if you precisely we're going to have some CI/CD pipelines, so we want to deploy like staging versions, test versions, etc. So this is going to, like multiply the number of load balancers that we have. So if we have hundreds of these load balancers, that's going to mean like thousands of dollars per month. Maybe we would like to reduce that in some way, and an Ingress controller will help us do that, because with an Ingress controller we can have a single load balancer with everything behind it, and it's going to do some content-based routing. So content-based routing means that we receive an HTTP request, and the Ingress controller will look at that HTTP request, and depending on the HTTP headers, like the host header for instance, or depending on the request path, it can send that request to a different set of pods, to a different internal service. So that's also pretty useful for single page HTML5 apps, for instance. If you want to do something like send /API that way, send /static or /assets that way, and send everything else to like a third service, that's something that we can do with an Ingress controller. And so we're going to install Traffic as our Ingress controller. And then we also would like to have an idea of how much resource like RAM and CPU we are using right now and who or what is using these resources. Sure, right now I just have like a few pods running, so I don't care, but soon enough I'm going to have a bunch of pods and I would like to keep track of who's using my precious resources. So we're going to install a very simple system called metrics server that's very basic. I will tell you more about it in a moment, but and that will give us a first idea of where the resources go. And then later we're also going to talk about Grafana and Prometheus, but metrics server is going to be our bare bones metric system. So each of these systems, like usually the installation instructions go like this. It's like, hey, here is some YAML, just kubectl apply this thing and you're good. Oh, and if you want to customize things a little bit, just edit that and that part in the YAML, etc. So what we often end up doing is get the YAML, tweak it, and then apply that, save the YAML somewhere. I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to use Helm as much as possible, because with Helm, instead of getting the YAML and tweaking it, I can do Helm install and then I can pass some extra flags to indicate how I want to change that YAML. So I can do something that feels to me a little bit more industrial and repeatable than just like hacking away at some YAML found in someone's repo. So that's what we're going to do in the next sections.